Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going back in time a little bit.
Time travel.
Yeah, to 2013.
Okay.
The year that Macklemore and Ryan Lewis were topping the charts.
Wow.
The Harlem Shake was going viral.
Oh, yeah.
But more importantly, for our purposes,
Yes.
we're looking at the global oil landscape as it was back then.
Fascinating.
We've got an article here from 10mosttoday.com called 10 Largest Oil-Producing Countries, published in August of that year.
Interesting.
You know, sometimes a little hindsight gives us the best view
Right.
of how the world has changed,
Yeah.
especially in something as vital as energy.
Absolutely.
So this is kind of like our time capsule
Ooh, I like
to
that.
see who was calling the shots
Yeah.
back in 2013 and
Yeah.
how things have maybe shifted since then.
Right.
So who was sitting on the oil throne back then?
Well, 2013, it was Russia.
Oh, really?
They were pumping out almost 11 million barrels of oil per day.
11 million.
Yeah, over 13% of global production.
Wow, that's a lot of barrels.
It-
I remember reading about Russia being a petrostate,
Uh-huh.
but what did that actually mean, you know, in practical terms?
It meant they had huge leverage
Okay.
on the world stage.
Right.
They could use their energy exports to influence countries,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Eastern Europe and Central Asia,
Okay.
many of whom were heavily reliant on Russian oil and gas.
Oh, I see.
This really fueled their geopolitical ambitions,
Okay.
allowed them to,
Project Power.
project power beyond their borders.
So it wasn't just about the money
No,
from the oil itself.
Yeah,
it was
it's-
about the influence.
it's all about that power.
Wow.
Control over a vital resource like oil
Right.
translates into serious political power.
Okay, so Russia was king of the hill.
The big dog.
But in second place, we have a very familiar name, Saudi Arabia,
Of course.
producing nearly 10 million barrels a day.
Yep. Still a giant.
I know they've been a major player in the oil world for decades.
Oh, yeah, for a long time.
Can you remind us why Saudi Arabia has historically held so much sway?
It's all about OPEC,
OPEC.
the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries.
Oh, right.
They're not just a member.
Uh-huh.
They're arguably the most influential member.
I see.
OPEC's decisions on production levels
Right.
have a huge impact on global oil prices.
Okay.
And Saudi Arabia often plays a key role
Got it.
in shaping those decisions.
So even though they weren't number one in 2013,
Right.
like they were still a driving force
Absolutely.
in the global energy market.
Like the conductor of an orchestra.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
They may not be playing every instrument,
Right.
but they set the tempo
Yeah.
and influence the overall performance.
Now, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
The article we're looking at actually predicted
Uh-huh.
that the U.S.
Oh, wow.
would overtake both Russia and Saudi Arabia
Right.
by 2020
Interesting prediction.
to become the world's top oil producer.
Ambitious.
Did that actually happen?
It did.
Wow.
It was a major shift in the global energy landscape.
Huge.
The shale oil boom in the U.S.
Okay.
led to a dramatic surge
Wow.
in American oil production.
So how did they manage to pull that off so quickly?
It was a combination of things,
Okay.
but the biggest factor was fracking,
Fracking?
hydraulic fracturing,
Right.
along with horizontal drilling techniques,
Okay.
allowed the U.S. to tap into vast reserves of shale oil
I see.
that were previously inaccessible.
So it was a game changer.
Absolutely a game changer.
Okay, so you've got the top three players,
Russia
Russia, Saudi Arabia,
and the U.S. on the rise.
the U.S. on the rise.
Yeah,
But this 2013 list has a few surprises further down.
like what?
Well, for instance, Iran comes
Yeah.
in at number 4,
Okay,
producing over 4 million barrels a day.
that's significant.
What's striking is that they achieved this despite being under international sanctions.
Right. Despite all that.
So how is that even possible?
Well, sanctions can have unintended consequences. Sometimes they can backfire.
Interesting.
In Iran's case,
Yeah.
the sanctions probably pushed them
Okay.
to become more resourceful and self-reliant in their oil production.
So it kind of had the opposite effect.
In a way, yes.
Wow.
It also likely drove them to solidify alliances
I see.
with countries willing to defy those sanctions.
So there were geopolitical implications as well.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
It's a complex situation.
Okay, next on the list is China,
At number 5,
pumping out over 4 million barrels a day.
yep, a major consumer.
I remember back in 2013, everyone was talking about
China's economic boom.
China's economic boom. Yeah.
It was incredible.
Did their energy needs play a role in that?
Absolutely.
How so?
China's massive energy consumption
Uh-huh.
was a direct result of
Growth.
their rapid industrialization and economic growth.
Yeah.
They needed oil to power their factories,
Right.
to fuel their transportation,
Yeah.
and sustain their construction boom.
So their position on this list tells a story about their rise
It's a key part of the narrative.
as a global economic powerhouse.
Exactly.
All right, let's shift gears and head north
To Canada.
to Canada, our friendly neighbor, clocking in at number 6 with almost 3.6 million barrels a day.
Not bad.
I know they're more than just maple syrup.
Oh, definitely more than that.
What made them such a significant oil producer back then?
It's mostly because of their oil sands.
Oil sands.
Yeah, mostly located in Alberta.
Oh, okay.
These oil sands hold massive reserves,
Wow.
but extracting it is a complex
Okay.
and some argue controversial process.
Controversial. Why is that?
Well, extracting oil from oil sands requires a lot of energy and water. It also generates more greenhouse gas emissions
Oh, I see.
compared to conventional oil production.
So there are environmental concerns.
Absolutely.
So Canada's position on the list highlights not just their oil wealth,
Right.
but also the environmental challenges that come
Exactly.
with certain types of oil production. It's a complex issue.
Yeah, and it's a debate that continues to this day,
It sure does.
especially as we grapple with the urgency of climate change.
It's a reminder that the quest for energy security often comes with difficult choices,
Right.
and we need to carefully consider the long-term consequences.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already,
We have.
and we're only halfway through the list.
Wow.
Looks like we've got a lot more to unpack in this deep dive.
I can't wait. Yeah, it's amazing how these rankings reflect
Yeah.
not just the amount of oil, but also,
Yeah,
the geopolitical and economic forces at play.
absolutely. Okay, so we've got Canada at number 6.
Right.
Moving down the list, we have Iraq at number 7,
Okay.
producing around 3.4 million barrels a day back in 2013.
Still recovering.
I remember that was a time when Iraq was still
Oh, yeah.
grappling with the aftermath of the U.S.-led invasion
A lot of instability.
and struggling to rebuild their infrastructure.
Absolutely.
So their oil sector was still in a state of recovery.
Very much so. But despite the challenges,
Yes.
their production levels were significant.
Right.
It really highlights the potential
Oh, yeah.
of their oil reserve.
Huge potential.
So even with all the instability,
Huh.
they were still a major player.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It speaks to the scale of their oil wealth.
Absolutely.
I mean, if they could achieve political stability and attract foreign investment,
Yeah.
they could easily climb higher on this list.
No doubt.
Makes you wonder what their production looks like today,
It does, doesn't it?
given all the developments in the region.
It's a reminder that geopolitical events
Yeah,
can have a huge impact on oil production
right.
and global energy markets.
Absolutely. All right, next up we have the United Arab Emirates
At number 8,
with just over 3 million barrels a day.
another major player.
They're another country that comes to mind
Uh-huh.
when I think of oil wealth.
Yeah.
But unlike some other oil-rich nations,
Right.
they seem to have managed their resources differently.
They were very strategic.
Okay, in what way?
Well, they invested heavily in diversifying their economy,
I see.
focusing on areas like tourism finance and infrastructure.
So they weren't putting all their eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
They were thinking ahead.
They were planning for a future
Yeah.
where oil might not be the dominant force it once was.
That's pretty smart.
It was a wise move.
And it seems to be paying off,
It has.
considering their position
Right.
as a global business and tourism hub today.
It's a good example of long-term planning
Yeah,
and strategic investment,
especially for countries that are
heavily reliant on natural resources.
absolutely. And rounding out our top 10 list,
Okay.
we've got Venezuela at number 9
Producing about 3 million barrels a day,
and Mexico at number 10.
almost 3 million barrels a day.
It's interesting to see Venezuela on this list.
Yeah. Considering what's happened since then.
It's a stark reminder
Yeah.
that possessing abundant natural resources
Doesn't guarantee anything.
doesn't guarantee economic prosperity
Right.
or political stability.
No, at all.
They were a top oil producer in 2013,
Uh-huh.
but a combination of things:
Right. A perfect storm.
economic mismanagement
Corruption
and political instability.
led to a dramatic decline
Wow.
in their oil industry.
It's tragic to see how their potential was squandered.
It really is.
What lessons can we draw from their experience?
I think it underscores the importance of responsible resource management,
Oh,
sound economic policies, and transparent governance.
so it's not just about extracting as much oil as you can.
No, it's about using that wealth wisely
Right.
to build a better future for your people.
It's about investing in education,
Healthcare,
infrastructure,
and creating a more diversified and resilient economy.
right.
One that can withstand fluctuations in the global market.
Okay, so we've traveled back to 2013
We have.
and explored the top 10 oil-producing countries.
Uncovering some fascinating insights along the way.
It's amazing to see how much has changed
I know, it's incredible.
in just a decade.
A lot can happen.
How this seemingly simple list reflects so many complex global dynamics.
It's a snapshot of a world in transition
Yeah.
with power-shifting economies evolving.
And new challenges emerging. This list really makes you think about the future
It does.
of the global energy landscape.
What do you think the future holds?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you.
Okay, shoot.
What's one major change we'd likely see if this list was compiled today?
One of the biggest changes
Yeah.
would be the rise of renewable energy sources.
Renewables.
Yeah.
Oh.
While oil still holds a dominant position,
Right.
the global push toward cleaner energy has fueled a surge in solar, wind, and other renewable energy production.
So are you saying we might see some new names on the list?
It's definitely possible.
Like countries that have invested heavily in renewables?
Exactly like China.
China.
They're investing a lot in solar energy,
Interesting.
so they could see their position rise.
That's exciting. It points towards a more diversified and sustainable energy future.
It does, but the transition is complex.
Yeah,
And it won't happen overnight.
of course.
We're still heavily reliant on fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And there's significant challenges to overcome
Like what?
in terms of infrastructure, technology, and political will.
Okay. Yeah, it really is amazing to see how interconnected everything is.
It really is.
When we talk about energy,
It affects everything.
it affects economies, politics,
Even the environment.
even the environment.
It's the lifeblood of the modern world.
And as we've seen
Yeah.
from our look back at 2013,
Right.
the landscape can change dramatically
Oh, yeah.
in just a few years.
Things can change quickly.
Which brings me to a question I've been thinking about.
Okay.
What's one thing about the future of oil production, inspired by this 2013 snapshot,
Okay.
that you think folks should really be thinking about?
That's a good question.
Something we haven't explicitly discussed yet.
What stands out to me is the potential for black swan events.
Black swan events.
You know those unpredictable events
Right.
that come out of nowhere
Yeah.
and have a huge impact?
So like a major geopolitical crisis?
Exactly.
Or a technological breakthrough we can't even imagine yet?
Right, yeah.
Even climate change-related events
I love those things.
could drastically reshape this list
Absolutely.
in ways we can't fully predict.
We can analyze and make projections,
Right.
but there's always that wild card factor.
That could shake things up.
Exactly.
I mean, back in 2013,
Yeah, think about it.
could anyone have predicted the Arab Spring uprisings?
And their impact on oil production in the region.
Or the COVID-19 pandemic
And the unprecedented disruption.
of global supply chains?
Yeah, no one saw those coming.
It really highlights the importance of adaptability.
And resilience.
Absolutely.
The energy landscape is constantly evolving.
Right.
Those who can anticipate change, embrace innovation, and adapt to new realities.
We'll be the ones who thrive.
That's the key.
Well, this has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has been fascinating.
We've traveled back in time to 2013,
Yeah, a little time travel.
explored the top 10 oil-producing countries.
And uncovered some fascinating trends and surprises.
Absolutely, and to all of you listening,
Thanks for joining us.
thank you for diving deep with us.
Until next time,
Keep exploring
keep learning
and stay tuned for more deep dives.
into topics that matter.